All right, thank you to everyone joining us tonight for our presentation this evening. If we haven't met in person, my name is Rebecca Cloud. I am one of the librarians here with Des Moines Public Library. As you will note, all of your cameras are turned off, all of your microphones are turned off. Don't worry, it's supposed to be that way for this presentation. We are so happy tonight to be able to welcome Green Iowa to talk to us a little bit about Intro to Weatherization. If you have any questions throughout the program, feel free to go ahead and pop them in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on it for when we get to question time, so you don't have to try to save it up for the end. You can just go ahead and pop it in there. And so without further ado, I would like to welcome our friends from Green Iowa.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rebecca. And I just want to reiterate again that I appreciate, and we all appreciate that you're giving us some time on your Wednesday evening for another Zoom call. So we'll make this something that I hope you'll get a lot out of. So I'm going to share my screen here, and then we'll go into a little bit about all right, I hope everyone can see my screen here now, and we'll go into a little bit about who we are as Green Iowa and what home weatherization is and what things that you can do to winterize your house, or like weatherize is a very similar term here. So let me start this. So once again, we are Green Iowa AmeriCorps. So my name's Daniel Maginot, and I am the education coordinator with Green Iowa AmeriCorps. And we'll get into a little bit. First, I'm going to do a short little introduction of what AmeriCorps is and what Green Iowa is and what we do here in Iowa. So first of all, here's our team. So all 5 of us are on this call. We are the panel. We have Brianna, Liv, Cassie, and Angelique all here in this picture. This was, so we do some work with Habitat for Humanity, and this picture is us working on home repair where we replaced some windows. So we do some of that too, but the majority of what we do is home audits and weatherizations. But we'll get into that in a little bit. So first, AmeriCorps. So AmeriCorps is a national service program. So it's a big program funded by Congress, and it's sort of like an independent organization which gives grants and money to different nonprofit organizations and different state-run and national-run programs that do all sorts of different types of service work around the country. So that's AmeriCorps as like the big picture sort of thing. And I listed that with a website there if you're interested in learning more about that. And you guys should have this email, the slides here from my email, which I emailed Rebecca, and she forwarded it to everyone who registered for this. And then specifically Green Iowa AmeriCorps is one of these programs, and we're funded through the AmeriCorps National Program. And here in Des Moines, so Green Iowa has locations all over Iowa. And here in Des Moines, we partner with Habitat for Humanity, and we conduct free energy audits and home weatherizations for residents in and around Des Moines. And that's only part of what we do. We also do education events like this, and also outreach events for doing volunteer work with other organizations and actually getting volunteers to work with us as well. So that's sort of Green Iowa and AmeriCorps in sort of a nutshell. We're not going to go super in depth there just because this presentation is more along the lines of what you guys can do with your home and sort of what we do when we do our home audits and weatherization. So these are just some tips we have for some things you can do around the house to weatherize and winterize your home, and you'll learn a little bit more about what that means. So we'll get right into it here. Weatherization is basically just a practice to protect a building and its interior from like the elements, sun, precipitation, wind, and like temperature when it gets cold. So mainly what we think of is when it gets really cold outside, We want to make sure that the home is well insulated and there's not a lot of cracks and leakages where you're losing energy and money through your energy bills there. And it's also a practice to modify a building, namely your home, which is specifically what we're talking about here, but also like big commercial buildings have these issues too, but mainly we're focusing on our residential homes to accomplish a few things. So we're reducing energy consumption, we're lowering energy costs, and we're basically keeping your home warm through the winter. And these are basically the three parts of why we want to weatherize or winterize your home. So we're reducing energy. If you're concerned about your own energy consumption and how that impacts larger systems, or if you just simply want to save money or stay warm through the winter. Cost savings, when you do this, we see it varies widely from home to home. If you have a very small home and you don't have a high energy bill and your home's pretty well insulated, if you do just a few things here and there, you can reduce your costs a little bit. And if you have like maybe a little larger home and like maybe it just depends upon like the size of the home, what's going on with the windows and doors, what insulation's going on there, what kind of lights you use, and we'll go into each of these things a little bit more. So these factors include from a cost perspective, the present conditions of the home, what can be modified, and what behavior changes you are sort of willing to implement. If you want to use less water, you want to heat less water, use less electricity, those are more behavioral kind of changes. And when we get into more like fixing windows and doors and changing insulation, those are things that can be modified in your home. So here are the different parts of weatherization that we normally approach as Green Iowa. And they include sort of like taking a look at what lights you use, water pipes, your furnace and HVAC system, aerators, windows and doors, taking a look at these, and then taking a look at your attic and basement. So I'm going to hand it off to one of our other members to start discussing this. So Brianna will start discussing the LED light bulbs here.
Hello all, thank you Daniel. Like Daniel said, my name is Brianna. I am one of the energy audit coordinators here in Des Moines. And one of the big things we do is when we go into a home is switch out people's incandescents and CFL, you know, those spinny lights with LED light bulbs. Some people are a little more hesitant to buy LED light bulbs when they go to the store because their initial purchase price can be around $4 versus incandescent and CFLs, which are a purchase price about $1. But LED lights can last you around 15 years to 20 years versus your standard CFL lasts 6 to 10, and your incandescent will last on average just 1 year. And the cost per year for LEDs are just 66 cents. For CFLs, it is about $1.10. And for incandescents, the cost per year per light bulb will average around $4.38. So a little more of a higher startup cost to implement LED lights in your home, but they will last a lot longer and be far more cost efficient per year. And next, we have water pipes. Like it says here, uninsulated hot water pipes are a source of energy loss. If you're trying to heat up the air around your water pipe, you're spending a lot more money than it takes to just heat up the water. So that's something that's really simple that we do when going into a home is evaluate the hot water heater and to see if the pipe is insulated. And these hot water heaters are actually high efficiency hot water heaters. You can tell from those little box fans on top. They force the any carbon monoxide that could be emitted straight out. So when we go into a home, we will test the furnace and the hot water heaters to see what their carbon monoxide emissions are and if they're an acceptable level. I believe under 225 parts per million is an acceptable level of CO. And these ones we would not have to test, since any carbon monoxide that is coming out of the water heater or a furnace, could have one of these as well, is immediately being sucked out of the home. And as far as the furnace goes, yes, you can check your furnace if there is.
Brianna, did you want to take a look at, so in the picture we have like the cold water, the cold pipes and hot pipes here with the insulated foam?
Absolutely, yes. Even though we can't test these water heaters, it is still a good idea to insulate the pipes around the water heaters, because you will spend a lot less money. Even just insulating the first foot is about all you need to do. Is all about what we do when we go into somebody's home.
Yeah, so you can see the top pipe, it has like this foam covering around it. So that's, you can tell that that's the hot water, and the cold water doesn't have that. So that's sort of like the insulation for the hot water pipes. And yeah, we could go to the furnace.
Great. And furnaces are, they can be a big source of carbon monoxide emissions. And so it's one of the first things we test when we go into a home. We also test all the gas pipes that are connected to the furnace, make sure there's no gas leaks in there. And if they are, we inform the homeowner, and they can choose to bring someone out to fix the leaks for them. We don't fix the leaks, but we do diagnose where they are. And a way you can tell if you can test the furnace is if there's a metal flange on top leading to the furnace, and that's really, there's a gap. This furnace, actually you can't test. It's called what we call a high efficiency furnace, and you can tell just because there's no metal flange duct on top and there's PVC pipe. So if you have one of these in your homes, you're very fortunate, because there's nothing we can do to test them because they are high efficiency. They're newer furnaces. Now I'm going to bop this over to Angelique.
Hello, everyone. My name is Angelique. I'm also one of the energy audit coordinators in Des Moines. So we're just going to talk about some aerators, windows, and doors. So the reason why you want to do aerators in your house is because aerators usually save you water and save you energy and money in the long run. So what an aerator is, it's just a small device that you place on the end of your faucet where the water comes out, and this usually reduces the amount of water that's coming out of the faucet by mixing it with air. So air will come through as well as water, and so it reduces the water that comes through. So aerators can come in many different, come in a couple different sizes. You just have to measure your faucet based on that, what type of aerator you want to use. And just installing a low flow aerator will save you about 50% on your water, just from that one faucet, or all the faucets in your house. And so that's aerators. Oh, that's it. Yeah, go ahead. And then windows and doors. So what we look for in our audit are any leaks and cracks in your windows and doors. So what we do in an audit is we set up what's called a blower door. And in this, it's a blower door test, and we'll set up this device in a door frame with a giant fan attached to it, and it will depressurize your house. And from that depressurization, it can tell us how much air is coming through your house through any cracks that you have. and windows, doors, in the attic if you don't have enough insulation, if you have a leaky attic, in your basement if you have anything wrong with that. It will show where all that air, how much of that air is coming through. And so it's okay in your house to have a little bit of airflow in it. Like you always want to have a bath fan taking air out of your house. You want to have an exhaust fan above your oven if you to take care of air, to let it go out. But you don't want a lot of air coming back in. And so in this blower door test, we look for that. And in windows and doors, we often find a lot of issues. And so you can have like a lot of drafts coming in. And so in order to help with that, we will do like door sweeps is one of them. There's often cracks on the bottom of the door that can create a lot of air coming into your house and make it drafty and cold, and which we don't want to do or have in our house. We also can do caulking around windows and doors to help, usually right around the door frame, not the door or window itself, but right around where it connects to the wall. You usually find gaps between there and the bottom of the windowsill where air will come through. So you can caulk there, and then you can do weather stripping between doors in the gaps right around the edges as the door closes, just to reduce airflow coming through when your door is closed. So if you close your door and you see any like lights coming through the door, that's when you can use some weather stripping in your house. You can also, is there anything else? Yeah, for windows, you can, in the winter time, it's a temporary solution. You can do window kits. You can place a plastic film over your window, and that will reduce airflow if you have a leakier window or something like that. And you can do some rope caulk on that too. I mean, that just reduces airflow between leaky windows and doors.
All right, did you have anything else to add there?
I did not. Do you guys have anything?
All right, then if there's nothing else to add there, I can move on to the attic and basement. So the next step, so Angelique sort of outlined, and also Brianna too, sort of when we go into homes and run a home audit and a weatherization. So the audit part is just to check what's going on with the house and what needs to be fixed. And that's what she was sort of explaining with the blower door test. We need to test and see if there's any issues. And then after we sort of do that test, we go back into the house and see if what we can fix, change out light bulbs and like caulk windows, add some like door sweeps and weather strips. And also we check the attic and the basement too. So we check for insulation. We check to see how much insulation and what type of insulation. And then we check for in the basement where we do the tests with the furnace and the water heater, and we check the rim joist in the basement too. So here's the basement. This is the basement of my parents' house. And you could see, so the rim joist is actually, so we're looking beneath, just beneath this photo here is a window to the outside. And then the floor above that, that's just like a floor near the dining room. And we have this insulated part at the top of the basement that's connected to the floor, and that's called the rim joist. And that's normally where you can see a lot of heat loss if it's not insulated, and if like the rest of the walls don't have insulation down there. And insulation can do a lot in order to keep the home energy efficient, keep warm air in while it's cold outside, and cold air in while it's warm outside in the summer. In the attic here, you'll notice here that there is no insulation. So we have a walk-in attic. So this is uninsulated space. And so this is just sort of like equal temperature inside and out. So there's no insulation here. But you see, and this is sort of the same picture like turned around when you go walk back into the house. And right above where you have insulated space, you see a lot of that pink foam sort of insulation. That's sort of what we generally think of as insulation. That's only like one type. That's generally fiberglass insulation there, just sort of like the pink puffy stuff. But there's a lot of different types, and you probably might have different types of insulation in your own home. And you see to the right there, there's no insulation on the roof, just because in your home, there's what we call insulated space and uninsulated space. In the attic, it's generally uninsulated. And then when we get into like the home space, that's where we have like the border, what we call sort of like the boundary between the inside and the outside. And that we want to keep the insulated space generally controlled temperature there. And this is actually, I thought this was a sort of funny picture. So this was the door leading back into the home. So we have a closet and then the attic. And this is sort of my parents' solution to keep the draftiness low. And this isn't generally a professional solution, but that's just what some people do. So that's sort of the rundown of what we generally check for and look for when it comes to the different aspects of our home audits and weatherizations. We could, in a little bit, we can move on into questions, but I want to move it over here to Cassie, who works in another branch of Green Iowa, sort of like within our team, but she is involved with other things. So I'll kick it over to Cassie.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm Cassie. I'm the outreach coordinator. Essentially what that means is, well, in the time of COVID, it means something a little bit different than I think it has for previous people. But essentially, I try to connect us to different usually it would just be environmental volunteering events and projects. So we provide support, for example, for the city of the Des Moines City Parks and Recreation Department, Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation, Trees Forever, and different groups around the city that are doing projects and need volunteers in order to accomplish them. So for example, we do I attended several seed harvests for prairie seed harvesting. So that provides a low-cost way for the city to be able to plant more prairie around the city, because typically if they had to buy the seeds instead of having volunteers pick them, it would be very, very expensive and prohibitive to the city to be able to do that. We also, in the time of COVID, kind of work a bit more broadly with different organizations to provide community support, because we are energy and community. So we also work, for example, at food banks, food pantries, animal shelters, and places like that, providing support basically where it's most needed to help vulnerable populations and make their lives better as much as we can. We also sometimes host our own events where we invite volunteers to come with us. That has been less common because COVID makes getting people together for environmental events quite difficult. But we still are planning to have them. One possibility is having, for example, future reimaginings, which is where you basically sit down with a group of people and you look at some aspect of the city, in this case, an environmental aspect, because we are an environmental organization, and you kind of think through what you would like to see the city do for those specific scenarios. So how you might want to see transportation evolve over time in the city, or how you might want to see gardens evolve over time in the city. So there are options where we'll be looking for volunteers or participants, and we would love to see you there for any of those. In the spring, we also might be able to do some outdoor activities around community gardens and stuff, and would absolutely love to have people there as well. So the library is a great resource and a great way for us to get in contact with people, and we would love to see you at any future events. And if you want to kind of just keep along with what we're doing, you can follow our Facebook page, which is linked here, which you'll have the link to in the slides of the presentation.
Thanks, Cassie. And then we can, I can kick us over to Liv, who runs our logistics. Liv?
Hello. So I'm Liv. I'm the logistics coordinator. My main responsibility within Green Iowa is contacting homeowners, getting the information we need from them, and scheduling their audits. So if you are interested in having an audit done, you can email us at that email on the screen or call our office phone number. We're not in the office super much, but leave a message and I will get back to you. We also offer a service that if you are uncomfortable having people come into your home, we do energy saver kits. So we will send you free of charge all the materials that you need to weatherize your home individually. So that is all. You can also get that information and get signed up for that through the same pathways. But the great thing about weatherization is that it's pretty easy to do, honestly, and there's really no downside. It's environmentally friendly, which I appreciate, and it saves people a lot of money. Like, we just did an audit last week where we saved this homeowner $70 a month, and for the 5 months where heating and cooling costs are the highest, that amounts to like $300-400 a year. And I know I would appreciate that, and I can assume y'all do too. But yeah, if you're interested in our services or just want to know more, please feel free to reach out, and we will get you scheduled.
All right. Now at this point, we could sort of open it up to questions, and we could go back and forth to the different points that we were talking about here. If anyone has any questions for us to go into either further details or other things that you guys have questions about.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here, Daniel, because we've gotten some good questions in the chat that I've been trying to stay on top of, but I'd like to bring them up in case anyone's not reading the chat. What do you use to insulate the pipes? What do you use to insulate the basement, the rim joists? Those are both really good questions. For pipes, they basically make smaller versions of a pool noodle that they sell at and all insulation they sell, except maybe blown in cellulose, they, as far as your fiberglass, your rigid foam, they will sell that at your local hardware store. And so as far as pipes go, use those foam insulators that look like a pool noodle. And for your rim joists, I would say the best two are the pink fiberglass foam or rigid foam, also called extruded polystyrene. It comes in pink and blue, and that's a little less messy of a way if you don't want to have fiberglass being exposed, especially areas where kids could be, and they have a pretty good R value, which is how much heat it keeps in and how much cold it keeps out.
Yeah, I was just going through the
right,
questions.
Yeah, there's a lot of good questions.
I would just like to add on to that, it's not incredibly important which insulation you choose, but like anything is better than nothing. Like do what you can, but anything is better than nothing. Like, I don't know if there's significant differences between the type of insulation that you purchase, like, but do insulate.
I mean, when it comes to like cost, like higher cost installations probably going to be like the better ones, but like Liv was saying, you sort of have to balance like how much you want to spend on your installation there, and something's better than nothing.
Yeah, always. Yeah, we got another good question. How long does insulation last in an attic? And I had to do a little bit of reading on that. Insulation with proper air sealing in the attic, which air sealing is kind of what we talked about before. It's caulking cracks, filling holes with spray foam, or any more kind of permanent airtight, watertight solution. Proper sealing will enable your insulation to last anywhere from 80 to 100 years. So if you do it right the first time, you should not have to worry about it again until the next home, like 2 or 3 homeowners down the road.
Yeah, so I think Brianna talked a little bit about the difference between air sealing and the insulation. So the insulation is like the actual like physical, like what you see as insulation, so the fiberglass or the vermiculite or what have you, that's actually doing the insulation between like the inside and the outside. Air sealing is more like what she was talking about with like caulking and weather stripping, where you're creating a tight seal between the inside and the outside. So the insulation, that's not creating a tight seal, that's just providing a buffer, like a heat buffer, where it's like going to be warm in this space and cold in this space, and those like the hot and cold generally like don't move back and forth very well. And then the air sealing is like when you have an airtight thing where no air is moving. So insulation, it's more of a buffer between hot and cold or cold and hot, and air sealing is more of like a seal between like air flowing back and forth.
I'm going to jump to the next question that I saw in the chat about the financial limit to receive an audit from Green Iowa. So what you have to do to qualify for our services is basically to own a home and the land and the land that it's on that is valued at less than $180,000. If you don't know that, you can look it up on the assessor website of the county that you live in. So if your home is less than $180,000, we will serve you. We do try to prioritize low income, the elderly, disabled, veterans, and anyone who's on LIHEAP assistance. If you don't fall into those categories, we can still technically serve you. We may ask you to pay for the materials that we use if you are able to do so, but that only generally amounts to not more than $20. Also, we might recommend you ordering an energy saver kit instead of relying on our services, because there are people who are in need. But those are really the only limits to who can receive our services.
Yeah, as far as the next question goes, it's if an attic was not air sealed before insulation was put in, what should I do? I added white fiberglass bats over existing blown-in cellulose shortly after buying my house in 1998. Well, since you did this in 1998, I would say any problems that could arise probably have arisen already. If you've noticed water damage in your house or any sort of mold, you can look into the attic and see what the condition of your fiberglass bats are, the top layer. And if you have any damage, I would say definitely either bring in us or there are other organizations that do air sealing as well, and to specifically work with attics and bring them in and get that all sealed and tightened. And then if there is any sort of wet insulation, you're going to want to remove that before mold spores develop.
So in terms of weatherizing for renters, for us to perform our services on your property, we will need permission from your landlord to do so. For us to come in and do our blower door test and do any permanent changes to the house or the property. If your landlord does not give you permission to do so, you can do temporary measures, which include window kits, rope caulk, and so those things can be removed and probably don't violate your lease. So your landlord probably shouldn't have any issue with it. Yeah, so for renters, if you can get your landlord's permission, then we're good to go and we can serve you. If not, there are things that you can do yourselves that are temporary and you will be able to implement.
Any other questions?
So one question patrons could be interested in is, does weatherizing add value to your home? And if so, you know, kind of a ballpark estimate of that.
I don't know if I would say it adds value to your home, but I feel like it is an investment in maintaining your house. Um, you know, because as your air filtration increases, it increases the risk of water getting to your home and causing damage. If your windows are leaky, you can get condensation forming, which rots out your windowsills. If your attic's not sealed properly, you can get water damage, and that can destroy all your insulation and give you a mold problem. So I couldn't give you a number of whether it improves your property value, but it is going to increase the lifetime of your house and reduce the number of problems that you're going to have going forward as it ages.
All right, we had a good question from Amy. That's, can that white fiberglass from her attic be recycled if she wants to remove it from her attic? I've been reading that fiberglass is nearly impossible to recycle, but there is one company, and apparently they claim to be the only company in the US that recycles fiberglass, and that is American Fiber Green Products.
So on that note, what would you suggest to someone who was looking to get rid of their fiberglass? In what way should they properly dispose of such a thing?
Ooh, that is a really good question. I'd say go to drop it off directly at where you would go to throw out any other like hazardous materials. They would probably be able to handle it best. Where you would throw out electronics or light bulbs. They're probably the most well suited to handle fiberglass.
And a lot of those types of things are like managed by the municipal like waste center. So you can, like, if you're in Des Moines, look up sort of like how Des Moines handles this kind of stuff, or like Iowa City. So like each sort of city has its own like things that it's managed and that it's able to recycle, that it's able to like move to the dump and that kind of stuff. I don't think there's like a one size fits all for like this waste management.
I would say that when you're removing it from your attic, try to keep it contained. So like take it down, put it into a trash bag, seal up the bag, because you don't want that stuff all over your house. You don't want it getting into the air. So do your best to keep it contained. I know that fiberglass can be irritating to the skin and eyes and air pathways. So like keep it contained and then take it to the dump, just to keep your house cleaner, I guess.
Excellent. Do we have any other questions for our panel this evening? All right. Well, if there are no other questions or if something occurs to you later, definitely reach out to the Green Iowa team. Their information is on that handout I sent you, but if you can't track it down, just email me at rlcloud@dmpl.org and I will get that to you. Thanks to all of our presenters this evening. I think we all got a lot of good information tonight. And with that, we'll go ahead and stop recording.
And thank you for setting this up, Rebecca and Daniel. This was really great.